Welcome, everyone. Today we have something very, very special. I have a good longtime friend of mine, Jonathan Decker. We were actually friends back in high school, and
Yeah.
he now has the most amazing YouTube channel, Mended Light. So Jonathan is a trauma therapist. He works on trauma and recovery, and he uses his talent as a therapist and his heart and skills as a therapist, and he has put that out there to the world for all of us to enjoy. And he's also so fun and enjoyable along the
Thank you.
way. So that's what he definitely pulls people in with your light and joy. So
Oh, thank
thank you
you.
for being with me today here. We're excited. So
My pleasure. And we're hopping over because we did a video over on Mended Light, the first half over there, reacting to one of my old videos about building confidence, which is one of your areas of expertise. And so we're picking up the thread, yeah?
yeah, yeah. So the first half, we'll definitely put a link there for the first half of this, where he's talking about confidence and his perspective of confidence. And now we're going to kind of do the second half here, and we're going to give our insight and I'd love to hear from Jonathan more about what he thinks about confidence and the way he perceives confidence, and especially confidence in overcoming weaknesses,
Yeah.
overcoming things that we're not quite that great at. Because a lot of our students at Pronunciation Pro, they're really up against this challenge of speaking English and as a second language, really having to, showcase their value and their skills and their expertise, but in a language that's not natural to them. And so they're building that skill, which is quite the struggle.
And I can relate to that personally. I learned Spanish as a second language, and I lived abroad. I lived in Chile for a couple of years, and I remember going from home in the United States where I could speak however I wanted to speak and communicate myself well and tell jokes and be seen for me, and then when I was in Chile, how I was so frustrated. I remember crying one night, just like literally crying into my pillow for about a half an hour, just nonstop tears, because I people couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand them, and I wanted to be myself and connect with them, and I felt like people weren't seeing the real me. They were seeing what they perceived as an idiot, right? And they may not have perceived me as an idiot. I may have been projecting that, but I definitely felt like they did because I couldn't be me, and I couldn't. And I remember it took me a long time. It took me like a year and a half to where I felt like I could speak the language well enough that I could tell jokes and be quick-witted or convey compassion or convey ideas the way that I wanted to. And that was the first time that I'm like, oh, I'm me again. I'm just me in Spanish, but like it took a while, and it was so empowering. It was so beautiful. But for a long time there, I felt really self-conscious and self-aware. And I think the best way I can describe that experience from my personal life is I didn't feel like me anymore, And so how do we work through when you don't feel like you because you're doing something that's not a strength, right? How do you find that confidence to push through it?
All right, great. Let's take a look at this clip, and this is the clip again. It's about confidence. We're kind of halfway through it, so we're going to kind of see what the second half brings and kind of react to that here.
All right, reacting to me. A lot of us lack confidence because of our weaknesses. And what's interesting is that the people who lack confidence because of their weaknesses are usually very forgiving towards others and their weaknesses and their flaws. They're usually very loving and accepting of others because that's what they want for themselves. But they don't give that to themselves. They wait for somebody else to give it to them. I know because I was that person for a long time.
Yeah, tell me your thoughts on it. I know it's strange reacting to yourself, but I know this is a while ago, and so it's like, is this kind of still how you're feeling about it? And would you add anything here, or what are your thoughts here?
Especially people who are generally compassionate and empathetic tend to be really mean towards others. It's like they reserve their kindness for other people. Like I think all of us have a certain amount of like light and dark energy inside of us, right? And we can feed the light and squelch the dark, but it's like we all have a mean side and we all have a kind side. And for some people, they save the mean side for home, right? With their siblings or whatever. Like that's where the nastiness comes out with their friends. They save all the kindness for that. Or for other people, it's at the office, right? They're at their best as a person at the office and they struggle at home, or there's different variations of that. And for some of us, we reserve our kindness for other people and our cruelty for ourselves. And I stand by what I said, and I think it's curious, the idea that we're waiting for somebody else to give it to us, to give us that kindness. We show it to others because it's what we want for ourselves, but we don't really see that we can go ahead and give that to ourselves, because we've convinced ourselves that it's a weak sauce consolation prize, that if I'm kind to myself, that's like, oh, because nobody else will be. And no, we don't need anyone else's validation. We don't need to win over Simon Cowell to tell us that we have worth. We don't need to win over our critics. We just need to see that worth and goodness in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my greatest lessons in life of the past few years, is being my best friend. I used to see that as lame. You're your friend because nobody else will be, right? And that's not what it means at all. You may have a lot of people willing to be your friend, but if you're not willing to be your own, the love that they give you, you're like a bucket with a hole in it, right? Mm-hmm. Like they try and give you love and it just leaks out the bottom. The only way to plug that hole and to find genuine confidence is to truly see yourself as enough and to give that gift to yourself.
I love that so much. We talk a lot in my program about, finding your personal power and having that power and strength come from within you versus looking externally to validate yourself and figure out, okay, am I enough? Am I good enough? Yeah. Am I speaking, like, how good am I? And recognizing we do need to get feedback, but that personal power, that strength from within is such a guiding light for us. Yes. And like you said, if you're constantly looking outside of you for it, then you're at the mercy of whatever is external.
You are, because who knows who you're surrounded by, right? Mm-hmm. I like to use the example, like if I'm a black man in like some rural backwoods part of the country and I happen to be surrounded by people who are racist, and there's a lot of them, I get the repeated message that I don't have a lot of worth. And then let's say I move to a different part of the country and I'm surrounded by a diverse group of people, or people who are more like me. Suddenly I'm treated as an equal, right? And I'm the same person. All I changed was who I surrounded myself with. And sometimes we have enough negative voices that we say, well, this must be true. I must suck because look at all these negative voices. And it's like, well, no. If you're a Boston Celtic and you're trying to win the approval of Lakers fans, like, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't mean you don't have worth. It just means you've got the wrong crowd,
Right.
And so,
yeah,
absolutely. Just some thoughts.
No, here, let's go ahead and do a little bit more of this clip.
Okay. In college, I did stage comedy. I won the campus-wide talent show. I was pretty popular. You would never know that most days I completely hated myself. That's true. I guess completely is a little strong. I hated myself about 80-85%. Because my weaknesses and my flaws and my struggles were all magnified and amplified in my own mind. And in my mind, they took away from my worth, they took away from my value. And as I said, everybody else was worthy of compassion, but not me. And then I had to ask myself, what makes you so special that your weaknesses and your flaws make you worthy of contempt, but everybody else deserves compassion? And I started to give it to myself. I heard your little sigh of emotion. So tell me what you think about that.
Oh man, I love this because it's just this like heart-wrenching, you can feel the pain. And that's what I'm like, I know that my audience can connect with that because there's just this visceral pain of like my weaknesses are, like my weaknesses and my self-critic, my internal self-critic is just constant. There's just this constant berating that happens. And so I like the emotion that you show in that is very real and raw and relatable. Absolutely relatable.
It makes me sad just listening to this and just thinking back on it, because when did I do this video? Let me look at it really fast. I did this video that was 10 months ago, so I guess we filmed it like a year ago. But what I'm talking about is a process of decades of my life, and even 10 months on from this, I feel so different. Not that the path is any different. I'm just further down the path that I'm describing, And so I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I did hate myself. That was terrible. I hated that. Let's not do that again.
Well, and to see the growth that you worked on it, right? You didn't just let it go, but you worked on it. You did something about it. You recognized, hey, there's this pain that I don't want to live with. And so I'm going to start shifting that and finding the tools and finding the resources to understand what you're dealing with and how to shift that is huge.
And like I tell people, you're not that special. And by that I mean, if everybody else has weaknesses and they're worthy of compassion and love, why are you so special that your weaknesses mean no, you just suck? And I started to work on my weaknesses to turn them into strengths. And this is where an attitude of confidence comes from. That I am good at things, and that the things that I'm not great at, I can become great at. If I want to, if I care enough to. There are some things I'm not great at, folks, and I don't care. I am never going to become amazing at cross-stitching. I honor and respect the cross-stitchers of the world. More power to you. I don't care enough to get good at that, and so that doesn't keep me up at night. But what about the things I do care about? Like not letting my family down, like not letting you down, like rising up to my potential as a person. An attitude of confidence helps with that. Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right.
No, I think you touch on a lot of this of just like it is your mindset. It is that internal sense of self that is going to be the guide here in whatever you're overcoming. And that concept of overcoming your weaknesses, like especially when your weaknesses are like in your face, but if you care enough about it, like I love this. You care enough about it, you're willing to do the hard. You're willing to go through that because that deep meaning, purpose, and reason for it is there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if you're not willing to go through the hard, does that mean that you're scared to face it, or does it mean it's something that doesn't really matter to you, like the cross-stitching thing? I don't want that bad enough. I don't want that at all. So I'm not willing to endure the discomfort to get good at it. But the things that do matter, like for me, it was showing up differently in my family and showing up differently as a husband and as a father. And so I want that. Right? I want that bad enough to endure the discomfort of looking at myself in the mirror and seeing the hard truths and making the changes. Everything you're good at is something that you used to not be good at. And so it's time and effort and instruction, and then also assessing and evaluating and pivoting, right? Tinkering with it. That's how you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm looking through, I'm like, there has to be a deep desire for it. And so for my audience, it's, their goals and their dreams really are contingent on, and their success in their country, in their new country, in their new, culture, so much depends on them learning and being successful with English. Yeah. And so doing that and recognizing this matters a whole lot. And then being able to say, okay, what do I need to do? What, I can turn this weakness into a strength, and having that belief in yourself that this is possible. Because I think that lack of hope creates that like apathy of just like, I'm not going to even try. But when you have that hope of like, this is going to work, I can keep working on this weakness and it will become a strength eventually. And then just the practice and repetition, getting the reps in to make that happen. I love that.
And it's going to be more gradual than maybe you would want. So your progress is harder to perceive, but it's kind of like when if you have kids and someone hasn't seen your kids for 8 months and they say, my goodness, you've grown. But you, as the person living with them, haven't even realized that they've grown that much because it's just a little bit every day. I take that back. I mean, you're a mother, so you realize when they've grown because generally speaking, you manage the clothing transitions, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me on here. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for being here, Jonathan. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your insight. So, and for all of those watching right now, definitely go check out Mended Light's videos and channel. They are doing amazing things and in just a fun, interesting way. So I applaud you for the good work that you're doing and how you're doing it. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, and right back at you.
Well, be sure to like and subscribe here to get more videos like these. And If you are interested in learning more about how to speak clear, confident American English, go check out pronunciationpro.com for your 7-day trial. All right, thanks everyone.